Good afternoon and welcome to Create Personal Equity Brand Masterclass with my special guest, my partner, Randall Wimmer. Today, we are going to talk about
Well,
baseline.
was that my intro? Did you just talk me the softball pitch? So what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about a baseline. How do you determine if your current personal brand is helping you or hurting you? And because believe it or not, many personal brands, especially in today's world where your image is a lot of different places where you don't even remember posting, and it's comments that you've made and things like that. A lot of people actually have personal brands that aren't adding to their value, and in fact, it could be subtracting from it. And without knowing where you stand on that spectrum, hey, is my online reputation hurting me, or is it really, really, really optimized to help me achieve my goals? So that's everybody's going to fall somewhere on that spectrum. Now the question is where are you when you're starting out creating your personal brand, and how do you get from wherever you are to creating the optimal personal brand, creating the optimal network that's engaging with you and that are acting as your force multipliers to help you achieve your goals. And you got to know where you are. It's just like going to a doctor's office and getting a physical. You got to do a checkup. And I think that's vitally important for everybody to do. And not too many people do that. No, we're really good at seeing flaws in other people, but we're really hesitant to look in the mirror and actually do a self-assessment. However, that is the most important thing that anybody can do for their success.
It's challenging to do. Like
It is.
it, I perceive this as counterintuitive, and we discussed this before starting this live here, but it's not it well I'm stuck on counterintuitive. It's not easy to see. It takes some thought, it takes some experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that like I said, like the first thing you do when you want to lose weight is you get on the scale. It's like you haven't made any progress. You know that you're going to get bad news, but there's value in having that bad news. And that bad news is knowing where you start so you can measure progress and performance. Because the thing is you're never going to get it right on the first time. You got to anticipate that. Your goal is not to get it right on the first time, because if you get it right on the first time, or you think you get it right on the first time, or you're only going to accept that you're getting it right on the first time, then you're going to be putting lipstick on a pig. And what I mean by that is you're stuck with that strategy, and you don't want to be stuck with that strategy. You want a strategy that when you execute it, you kind of measure just to see how effective it is, and you continuously improve it. And most in our society, most people are shy away from that kind of strategy. Again, I think I've shared this in the past where I had a Deloitte partner. She was very sharp, and she very quickly and succinctly taught me the fail fast methodology. And that is, you get in there and you immediately come up with a solution and you measure it. And then you assume that it's wrong. You assume that it's bad. It assumes it's not working as well as it should be. And then what that does is that immediately avoids the stigma, so you can continuously improve it. And now you end up with a continuously improving product rather than one that had to work, so you want to make it look like it works even though it doesn't. So again, I thought she was joking. I embarrassed myself by laughing, like when she said, "Oh, we have a strategy of failing fast," something like ha ha ha. It was like she was serious. It's one of those. Oh, it was not one of the prouder moments of my life. Laughing at their really, really, really valid and successful strategy of failing fast. So, but it's a lesson I took away from it. It's like you got to get in there and you got to measure and you got to assess where you are. Lots of different ways to do that, though. There really is. Jonathan, like you're the LinkedIn guru. How do you do it? On LinkedIn.
I was just going to speak to that. I believe you just described fast iteration, which ties into that's the foundation to SpaceX, this current success, right? They dove in there. Uh, I am a LinkedIn top voice. I am one of 300 people in North America that received this top voice on LinkedIn, this level of account this year. How did I do it? Just jumping in and making the mistakes. Yeah.
But you don't know their mistakes unless you're measuring. That's the important things. You don't know that it's not working until you actually do some self-assessment. And because you could have jumped in when 100 miles an hour, in that direction, and then you realize that that direction is wrong. That's not the direction I need to be going in. And you continuously, gave it course corrections, and you have fast iteration. And so again, for people who don't know where to start, the best place to start is to assess where you are right now. Now, you got to know what to assess, though. Everybody thinks, well, my number of followers is my number of this, is the amount of engagement that I get, and that could be correct, but most of the time it's not. Or that's not the full answer. The full answer is are you getting the engagement that you need from the right kind of people that are aligned with your goals? And this comes back to a phrase that Jonathan always uses, and that's not all clicks are created equal. You get some clicks that they just don't add value because they're not aligned with your goals. And in fact, in many regards, they can be misaligned with your goals. If you start attracting the wrong type of engagement, you are just going to shoot yourself in the foot. And I tell you, this is really common, and I have no idea why people do it. This is one of the most common mistakes that people do. They get political. And then they wonder why over half of the people, have a very negative opinion about them, because that's politics in the United States right now, unfortunately. If you feel strongly about one political party, boom, that means that you're going to have strong views that you've expressed over and over and over. That's going to be not well received by at least 55% of the remaining audience out there. That could help you. So that's one of those things that you got to be careful about. You don't want the wrong kind of engagement. You don't want 1,000 cat ladies crazy cat ladies following you when you're trying to get the CEO position that's opening up at this Fortune 500 company, because that kind of engagement with people talking about their cute little kitties and all that kind of stuff nonstop, it actually reflects poorly upon you and your brand.
Yes, sir.
So that's one of the things that I think a lot of people get wrong, is not all clicks are created equal. So, Jonathan, it looks like you're locked up a little bit, or you are in some seriously deep thought. So I'm just going to press on until the electrons decide to work a little bit better for us. So now the question is what do you measure? Well, if you want to do a baseline assessment of where you are and how much your personal brand is helping you achieve those goals, you got to know what those goals are. You got to know what the goals are. And then you've got to figure out what are the various types of network members you need that can help you achieve those goals. For example, if you're trying to get that CEO position, your targeted optimal network are people who can help you facilitate that goal. And that is like they're members in, of boards of directors, they're owners of private companies, people who actually can make a hiring decision to hire you on as the CEO of the company. They're not crazy cat ladies. And again, I can say that because we're that kind of that touches home with our family a little bit, because my wife is like crazy into the cats right now, and to the point where we're just walking down our neighborhood and she sees a cat and she immediately had to save it. So in essence, we ended up stealing our neighbor's cat because she wanted to save it because she's like so into cats right now. So but anyway, those aren't the kind of that's not the kind of engagement that you want. You want engagement with people who can help you facilitate your dreams. So the very first thing you got to do is you got to figure out what your dreams are, and you got to figure out who your optimal network is. And it's not just people who can help you, it's not just the people who can help or make a hiring decision to make you the CEO of a company. It's also your enablers. It's also people who can help you learn what you need to know, mentor you to make sure you're not stepping on landmines. Those type of peoples. And then the third category of network types is mentees. The most important attribute that you can show a hiring manager is the intangibles. And here's the deal with intangibles. You can't tell people you got them. You can't say, "Hey, I'm really humble. In fact, I'm the most humble person in the world. I have so much humility that I make humble people, look arrogant. That's how humble I am." It's like, come on, those intangibles are incredibly important, and you got to show, don't tell. And you got to show those network members that you have that character, that you have leadership, that you're a thought leader in the industry, that you give back to the community, that you engage with the community, that you have influence. Those are something that you just can't say. You got to show. So what do you need? You need an audience to help, to give back to help mentor, to show that you have these intangibles, which is infinitely more important than any technical qualification you could ever have. As for senior level opportunities, and then I'll shut up, Jonathan. It's like, it's less than they want leadership. They want somebody who has values. They want somebody who can, they do the right things. Not, it's like they don't want to know how well you know ones and zeros. That could be important, but for most people in those type of positions that we all strive to have, it becomes less and less about technical expertise and very specific qualifications, and more about the intangibles that you present. And so you need all types of those network members in order to really help expedite your goal attainment.
I'm going to go into a little bit of the deeper side, and I'm going to express how it makes sense to me, Randy. So my ask to you, Randall, would be to check me. If I go too far off on the deep end, please course correct. First, we had like a glitch in our internet here just a moment ago. So I apologize for anybody watching this if anything goofy happened. If not, they're going to keep running.
Oh, you just froze a little bit. You look like you were in deep thought. So we
okay,
were allowing you in your deep concentration. Now, if that was me, I would have had this weird, goofy face that would have been frozen for about 60 seconds, and everybody would have been laughing. It was actually a pretty stoic pose on your part. So good job on that.
Speaking of future memes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I picture this. What is the goal of being online? And the goal is to get attention, right? And the counter to getting attention is not getting attention and just existing online. I picture this as a bell curve, right? Most people, the majority of the population, are going to be on the mean. They're going to be in the middle. The mean is the least visible part of the population. If you are in the middle, you do not stand out. You just exist, right? And the goal, like what we're talking about now, being on the internet with purpose, which means we don't want to be in the mean. Being in the mean is bad. It is a negative to be like everybody else, because everybody else blends in. It blends into nothingness. You do want to stand out. You do want to be unique. So when we speak to where do you currently sit, and to Randy's point, like where do you want to go? Like if you're in the mean, it's bad. You need to separate, or I needed to separate from the mean. I needed to do something that was different than what everybody else was doing. And that's the counterintuitive part of baseline. Because if you look at what everybody else is doing, you're looking at the mean. The easiest thing to see is the thing you don't want to do. And it's challenging to, that's speaking of our value add, it's not intuitive. Like it takes a while to catch that.
This is what I tell my kids. And every parent has this conversation with their kids at some point. And this is the way I worded it to my kids. I told them, I said, I want you to be successful in life. I want you to have the kind of life that you want. If you want to live and you want to have the life of a top 1%er, then you got to do the things that a top 1%er does. For example, you like what you were saying with that normal distribution of people. If you want to live like the top 1%, those top 1% are way over to the right side of that distribution. Those are your outliers.
They're hard to see.
Again, if you're acting like you're in that body, then you're going to fall into, you're going to have the same success as everybody else does. And that's fine. I will say this: if you want to live a mediocre, not mediocre, that's a bad word to say. If you want to live just a typical life, you want to jump in and you want to do, just coast along, and you want to take the typical, I'm going to work 20 years, and then at this point I'll be a whatever, and then in 20 years, whatever your career field is, if you want to do the traditional path, and you want to have a 50% chance of, kind of like landing on that line, then your personal brand, not that important. It's just going to happen. Just timing great. They're going to, you're just going to naturally progress and do that. However, the kind of people who need a personal brand are the ones who are striving to become like the top 1%. I hate to use that term, but I think it applies here. You don't want to have typical watered down success, and you want to get deep. I'll give you deep right here. We are told by everybody, society. We'll call it society because I don't want to get into governments. I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into religion. But when I say society, it includes all of those things. We are told to do things that are best for society, not for the individual. And, what may be great for society, we got to keep everybody in checks, and, we got to keep everybody, happy and all this kind of stuff. That's what's best for the masses, but it's not best for you. So if you want to, and this is another analogy I tell my sons, it's like, there's 3 types of people in this world. 99% of them are sheep, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're living their best life. They're walking around, they're grazing, they're eating grass, and they've got a big community that they bump into, and everybody's happy, and they're living their life. But for 1% of the population, they want, I don't want to say more, because that implies what the rest of the people are doing is bad, but they want something different. And so there's 1% of the population that wants something different than just being part of that group of sheep. Is it a herd? Is it a herd? I guess it's a herd of sheep, and they want something different. And that 1%, they fall into 2 different categories. You could either be the shepherd dog, who takes on that leadership role, who is a protector, and who's doing good and positive things, or you got the wolf. And the wolf, well, guess what? they're taking advantage of people, and they're of the sheep, and they're snatching them, they're taking them away, and they're eating them, and all that. So the deal is if you're happy with being a sheep, and again, there's no negative connotations whatsoever about that. If you're happy with that, then your personal brand is probably not very high on your priority list. But if you want to be somebody who wants something a little bit different than going with the herd, then what you have to do is you have to have a personal brand, and it's got to be a positive one, not a negative one. You don't want to go around looking like a wolf, like you're not positive. You want to be adding value to the flock, not detracting from it. So you got to have that positive, personal brand and reputation. But you have to have one. You have to have one. Otherwise you're not going to stand out. Just like you were saying, Jonathan, you're not going to stand out. You're not going to have success. You're not going to be the one picked. And because, getting picked when you're just a random sheep in the middle of a flock or a herd, that's just random. It could happen, and theoretically speaking, it does happen randomly, but the probabilities are against you. So if you want to have the success of that 1%, then you got to do things differently, and you need to have a personal brand, because you have to act like the top 1%. You have to act like that, and pick out whoever your goals are. You got to pick. You got to find the person that you want to become. You want to emulate their success. If you want to become president of the United States, good on you. Yeah, but the kind of people who run for that high level of office, guess what? They exist online. They have a reputation. You want to become a CEO one day? I guarantee you, before these people will be being selected as CEOs, They were online. They had a brand. They had a reputation. They had credibility
They
because
weren't a sheep.
that's right. They weren't a sheep. They weren't one of the random. They weren't one of the people who were just part of the group. They were standing out. They were noticed. So that's the saying. If you want to act, if you want to be in the top 1%, you got to act like the top 1%. And all the top 1%, they have online, they have personal brands, they have online reputations, and you have to have that. Now there's positive, reputations, but because like I said, it's very easy to have a negative one. But anyway, that's how I convey it to my kids, and I think it's relevant. You gotta be the person. You gotta act like the person you want to become. Because otherwise you're just going to be started. You're going to remain part of the herd, the sheep.
I'm aware people latch onto stories. And a personal story. Randy and I were partners in this, but he's my mentor. He showed me a lot of stuff I didn't know. And when he first brought up this the sheepdog and then the wolf and the sheep, this topic, that was a big deal. I wrote down the sheepdog. I haven't heard somebody describe it like that before. From the perspective of the sheep, there's a negative connotation with the 1%. Like the 1% is bad. All 1% are wolves, like the Wolf of Wall Street kind of situation. The sheepdog perspective, that rocked my world. That was a big deal. I got it written down somewhere. That was a big deal. It was
No, because the deal is well, here's the other thing too. We're being conditioned not to like the top 1%. Why? Because it's going to encourage other people to do things differently. And when you do things that are best for you and your family, it's not always best for society. I'll give you the perfect example. I'm going way back in time because I don't want to get political or anything like that. But
awesome.
The worst thing that ever happened to the human being was the best thing that happened to human civilization, and that is farming. We used to live in tight communities. We used to graze. In the summertime, we were picking berries and living off of the land as roots and berries and grubs and all this kind of stuff. In the winter, we became hunters, and we had a very diversified diet. We had a lot of protein. We had a lot of different type of vegetation that we were eating. And then all of a sudden we domesticated wheat. And once we domesticated wheat, we learned how to make bread from that. So now all of a sudden, in order to grow this wheat, you had to have large groups of people come in and plow fields. And it would take several months in order for it to go from planting to ultimately, being able to harvest the grains. And then once you harvest the grains, you had to grind it up, and that needed a different kind of group of people, and they were pounding it up. And next thing you know, we were a society, we were living in larger groups, and we were living off of a diet that was basically a bread-based diet, very unhealthy. And what we had done is that we had given up individually a much healthier, more diversified diet in order to be able to create something that was better for quote unquote civilization, for the masses. It's better for the masses, for us to all live in these communities. And again, that wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the best thing for the individual. And what we do is we tell people, and again, now I'm going to get people like coming off the top rope here. Compounding interest, man, I love it. Compounding interest is so smart, but you know what? This is what everybody tells you to do, because we need sheep to put a whole bunch of money into their 401ks and stuff like that as soon as they can, and start saving, because we want them to be able to take care, at least partially take care of themselves when they get older. It's all about compounding interest, and you got to get that money, and you got to pack it away, and you got to put it in an investment, and da 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 da. I don't have a 401k, and I'm wealthy. I do. It's a tiny one because my company's had it, and I had to participate in it. Just to make sure that we were abiding by certain laws and things. But I tell my kids, don't pocket your money. Use the hell out of it. I'm not telling them to save money, because I want my kids to be a 1%er. I want them to, invest whatever money you have into starting a business, doing something that's going to create wealth, not what's best for the overarching society. So again, you've got to do what's best for you and not what's, here's another one. And then I promise I'll get off I'll get off my soapbox here, but it's a mindset. The most important thing about success is the mindset. I live in Fairfax County, and Fairfax County public schools are notoriously good. And now I hope I have no Fairfax County public school, members here, but you know what? They're good. They're not good because of the teachers. They're not good because of the policies. And I'm not saying that the teachers are bad. I'm saying I'll just say this: Fairfax County public schools are taking a ton of credit because the parents in Northern Virginia are hyper successful. These are a big chunk of the 1% lives in Washington, D.C., the meta center for the most powerful people in the world. So a lot of the people that you're in Northern Virginia with they're just hyper successful, and they're teaching their kids how to be hyper successful. And I remember a few years ago, there was a film or a movie coming around, and it was, The Road to Nowhere. I can't remember the name. Maybe that was the name, but basically they're saying, it's okay. Your kids don't have to have straight A's. It's okay. Your kids don't have to have, all these extracurricular activities.
Hugs for everybody.
Yeah, no, it's like, they just let them be kids. And I'm thinking, let me get this right. Teachers and school professionals are telling the most successful parents as a group, for school districts, probably in the country, if not the world, saying it's okay. Don't push your kids, because when they're at school, they're pushing us, which is basically what the point was. Is it's okay. B's are good. You don't have to go to an Ivy. You don't have to go to an elite school. You don't have to get a STEM major. You don't have to do these things. It's okay to be okay. And I'm thinking I spent my entire life trying to be successful in order to be able to give opportunities to my kids. And I'm trying to teach them how to be successful. And I've got the infrastructure that we're all dependent upon, telling them it's okay to be mediocre and join those sheep. Go out there. We need more sheep. We need, because there's an element of danger. Like I said, what's best for society is not always best for the individual, and what's best for the individual scares society. And that's why, I think that there's this, and now I'm sounding like a conspiracy theorist, but we have all turned against the top 1%. We used to admire them. They used to be the physical embodiment of the American dream. Somebody comes over here, God forbid, immigrants come over, to the United States, and they're wildly successful,
Henry Ford,
changing things. And wow, now they're, and we used to cheer them on, because they were our, our leaders, our role models, and we wanted to emulate them. And now we see people, we're wondering hey, why is he making so much money and I'm not? Why isn't he giving it more to his employees? Well, because his employees didn't earn it. His employees got paid what their value was to the company. They got paid fairly. I had this discussion the other day. It's well, why do CEOs get paid so much more than their employees? Because they move the needle. You bring in a top 1% CEO, he's going to move the needle, and he's going to increase the value of the company by 30%. You bring in a really great janitor, you know what he's going to do? He's going to sweep the floors. That much better than 30% better than a poor janitor. Nothing wrong with janitors. You know what I mean? The work that has to be done, that kind of stuff. But sweeping the floors 30% better doesn't add the same value as increasing your company's value by 30%. And that's why CEOs get paid that much more. So, our target audience that that we do this for are not for the people who want to be sheep. It's for the people who want to achieve, who want to be successful, because they trust themselves more than they do society, that they can affect a positive change. And, I think that's every parent's dream, that they do that, help their kids do that. But in order to help your kids do that, you got to do it yourself. you got to set the example. You got to show them that it is doable. So that's kind of like, and I'm at that age right now where I got kids going off to college and things. And, so I'm relating everything to kids. And I know not a lot of people aren't necessarily at that phase of their life. But anyway.
We're coming up on time here. I think ironically that or not iron, maybe, yeah, that entire story points back to the baseline portion because not everybody wants it. It's not easy. There's negatives it's hard to do. You spoke to the competitive portion. What, Fairfax County? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Fairfax County, Virginia.
It's tough. It's tough. Do you want to be in that tough environment? And it's not for everybody. Like, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's a choice. Do you want that? In our audience here, who we're doing this for, create personal equity, who this is for is that one that wants that 1%. Like, we're disqualifying those who don't want. Our message is disqualifying those who don't want that.
I'm telling you, I got 2 kids, or 3 kids right now in college. And, one of them is in a double engineering major at Duke. And I told him, first of all, I encouraged him to do that. He asked me, he said, like, Dad, how can I, what should I do? I want to be successful. I want to do this. I'm thinking like, okay, don't take the easy way, take the hard way. But, when it becomes really, really, really hard, you can't stop. Because that's, everybody wants to be, rich and wealthy and successful and all that. You can ask 100 people, and 99% of them will say, yes, I want to have success. Yeah, everybody does that, but the deal is are you willing to do the work? That's the question. So I told him, like, the very first part of doing the work is you got to step up to the plate. Like saying, if you want to do it, you got to obligate yourself to do it. And, so like right now he's got a girlfriend. He's also a Division I athlete. He's taking it on the chin right now. He's like crazy busy, but but he's fighting through it. And you know what I mean? It's just like it would have been so easy for him to not have done as well in high school and gone to to a lesser schools, studied a lesser major. And then got off and gotten a job and just been part of the sheep. But that was not his mentality. And so he's got a hard but very fulfilling life ahead of him. Because I can't stress, the hardest parts of my life professionally were also the most fulfilling.
Yes, sir.
And it's like when I've done, and I've had all kinds of jobs growing up. When I've had really easy, simple jobs, man, they were easy, but they were unfulfilling, and they didn't help me. I left probably one of the best jobs in the world. I had to work really hard to squeeze in 8 hours of work into a 40-hour work week. Now think about what I just said. I had to work really hard to squeeze 8 hours of work into a 40-hour work week. So the customer liked it when we came in early because a lot of people stayed late. So he said, hey, I can just get, you come in really early and leave early. That's fine because I got a lot of people come in really late and leave really late. So I just have more coverage at the office. And he liked that. So I'd go in really early. Nobody was there. Nothing for me to do anyway. So I was like reading the paper on the clock, and then afterwards I'd walk around, and when people started to come in with my cup of coffee and chit chat with them. And then I would read the early bird. For those of you who are, in the military or the contractor world, the early bird is kind of like somebody in the government creates all the headlines of all the relevant articles that could be relevant to the government or the military. And so I'm reading the newspaper, and then I'm getting a good lunch, and then I'm working out, and during that, afterwards or beforehand, and then I'm leaving early, and I'm beating traffic, and it was the best 3 years of my life. It really was, from a work standpoint, completely unfulfilling. I was basically spending 40 plus hours of work, a week, doing nothing that I felt like was meaningful. So a lot of people who strive to be in that top 1%, they're not doing that to get the beach house. Believe me, that's having a beach house is nice, but they want to have a meaningful contribution. That 40 plus hours that we all spend at work, they want it to count for something. Oh, and nice. And that's and then kind of get back to you're doing a good job. Well, actually, you're failing miserably at trying to keep me on track here.
Awesome.
But getting that back to a baseline, the very first step is you got to assess where you are. You got to figure out where you are on that spectrum. Is your personal brand? Well, first of all, do you even want to do this? Do you want to strive to be a sheepdog, or do you know if you're comfortable doing that and you're happy doing it? Great and wonderful. Not everybody has to get fulfillment from their job. Maybe they're getting from a hobby.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah. So, and I'm not being critical of that too. So, if you want to do something different, you want it to count, you want it to be, if work is one of those things, if you're saying like, hey, the 40 plus hours that I spend at work, I want it to count for something and I want to have more impact and I want to be able to shape what that impact is, then, having a personal brand is a necessity. And having an online reputation, because those are all the opportunities are going to come from. They're going to come from, the people who are out there. They've got the established, credibility, the reputation, the influence. They have the network of people advocating for them, and it's going to get done. They're going to have that success. The very first step is to figure out where you are. Where are you? And I can guarantee you that wherever you are, if you think you're in a good spot, you're off by an order of magnitude, minimum. It's at least 10 times harder than what you think it is. And whatever you think you're doing, in order to really achieve success is hard to achieve.
Yes,
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So I tell people who launch companies, it's like, okay, 18 to 20 hour work days, let's do it. And for the very long foreseeable future, that's the reality. It's hard to be successful. So wherever you think you are on your personal branding, I would take a look and say, okay, who are the people who are doing it, at least one order of magnitude bigger and better than I am, if not two. What do they look like? And I think that's what, those are the folks that you would probably call your marquee mentors. They're people who are having success, and they're the people who can probably show you how to do it.
Recapping, speaking to the audience, you could call this a sales pitch if you want. I recommend you don't. Perception wise, this is a fact. What we're describing is a fact. This is just how it works, right? If the goal is to be awesome within the average of the population, then you can go the average route for branding, because they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're going to post a bunch of cat videos, right? Like if you want to be
or not be on it at all, or avoid it, or be passive. And I would say about 90% of the people are lurkers. They don't contribute to the discussion, but they're reading it. That's, I would say, easily 90%. Probably, if they did the math, it'd probably be closer to 99%.
Yeah. Okay, so that goes back to it. What do we add? What are we doing? What is the purpose of this conversation? We're speaking to the 1%, right? We're speaking to that one that wants it hard, that wants to succeed, and is will. Why do you climb Mount Everest? Because it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Why are we going to the moon?
But again, it starts with looking in the mirror and say, okay, is this something that I really want to do? And am I going to put the work into it? And am I doing the things that the successful people are doing? Do I have a personal brand? Do I have an online reputation? Am I demonstrating that I'm giving back to the community, that I have all these intangibles, that I have strong characters, that I have strong leadership? Am I demonstrating those to my network, to people who can, help me achieve my goals? And, that's a simple task, from a functionality standpoint, but from a overcoming emotional equity, nobody wants to look in the mirror and kind of poke out their flaws. Like, hey, man, you got around 10 extra pounds. You need to get rid of that, Randy. Look at those love handles. Nobody wants to do that. It's uncomfortable. But that is truly the first step. Is you got to figure out where you are. And then once you figure out where you are, then it's easy to create a roadmap to get to where you need to be. And if you're continuously monitoring your progress, then you do course corrections. You do fast iteration, like you were saying, Jonathan, to get you there. So, that first step, look in that mirror, put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, be brutally honest with yourself, because nobody else is going to be. Your loved ones are going to be kind. They're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Most people are within that mean.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're going to say
99% of the people you talk to are the 99%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's. I remember reading a. I saw a top 10 list of how to stay poor, and I thought,
Oh,
yeah, it was hilarious. It's
conversion.
top 10 things to do to stay poor, and it was like take advice from other poor people. It's like got that one, boy. That'll keep you poor in a heartbeat. Follow the examples of other poor people. Boom. It's like you can't do that. So, and nobody's going to tell you, to challenge the system. Nobody. And in fact, the people that care about you the most, they're going to tell you, not because they're being mean, because they're not that person, and they see you doing things that are challenging your status in the herd.
Cognitive bias, right?
Oh yeah, my in-laws, they're really big in the government, and they were encouraging me to become government employees. And I think the most that a government employee makes, even if you're like an SES, a senior executive service member, is like 200 to 300,000 bucks. What was the president or members of Congress make? They make what, 300,000 or something like that. So the deal is they were aspiring me to get into the government. It's a nice stable job. It takes an act of Congress to fire you, and it's like all these perks. Again, you can't be fired. It's just like it's easy. It's all these great and wonderful things. But the deal is that's not what I wanted, for me or my family. And I was getting that constant encouragement. I can't tell you how many job notices that I received in the email from my in-laws here for a while when I was struggling to get my company up and running. So that to them, that was, that was like, you're like the big sheep in the flock. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, you got the coveted position in the flock. You're kind of dead center in the flock where you want to be, with that kind of job. And it's that's not where I wanted to be. But I was hitting resistance nonstop, trying to get out of that, because the whole world, 99% of the people are opposed to you doing that, because it challenges what they've been indoctrinated to believe. This is good. This is good. This is good. Don't mess with it. Now, the other 1%, they're frequently going to consider you a competitor. So, you don't have too many people to get support from. That's just, you're going to have to do it yourself. You have to look in the mirror and say, we have got to make this work.
Insert create personal equity.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's sorry to jump in, but
we need that plug in there. Create personal. Yeah, but that's seriously what we're talking about, though. Because once you do this thing, it stays with you. You have value in yourself. And I'm not. Everybody has value in themselves. That was not. I shouldn't have said it that way. You have professional equity. Because you're perceived as an expert. You're perceived as a thought leader. You're perceived as an influencer. You're perceived and observed as having all these intangibles. You have value. So if you want to go after this opportunity, that translates to that opportunity. If you want to go for this opportunity, you still got that value associated with you. And it stays with you. It really does. How about these people who again, I don't want to get political, but I'm going to here. Look at all these people who leave public office, president of the United States. And you get all these people who talk about they're all for the normal people. They're for the sheep. They're for the sheep. They're fighting for the sheep. And as soon as they leave public office, or even God forbid, while they're in public office, have you ever seen how much money Pelosi made? While she was in office, off of her investments that she well, her investments did like an order of magnitude better than anybody else's investments. And I was like, hey, how did that happen? Once you became the Speaker of the House, So, but anyway, again, I shouldn't have said that, because now I did get a little political. But these people who are supporting the sheep, they're not sheep. They're far from it. And they're one could say that they're actually wolves. A lot of those people. So they're taking advantage of the fact that they're not sheep to exploit the sheep. So, and then they go off and they make $1 gazillion. The point I was trying to originally make is they have so much brand equity. They have so much, personal branding, that when these people do leave, everybody wants to snag them up as keynote speakers. Everybody wants to snag them up to sit on their boards.
It's logical.
Everybody, because their personal equity that they created in politics stays with them outside of politics. And in fact, it's probably even more useful and more valuable outside of politics than what it is in politics. So, you see all these people like the Obamas, how they're writing, best-selling books right now. It's not because they're the best authors in the world. It's because they have a brand associated with them, and they could write, hell, Jimmy Carter, he was writing poetry, people were buying it. Nobody buys poetry. You know what I mean? It's because of his personal brand. And
when you put out your poetry book.
So anyway, it's like it stays with you no matter where you are. It really is transferable.
Alrighty, I think we could end it with this closing thought. I will share mine, and Randall, I'm gonna ask that you share yours. My closing thought: we are not doing the average. What we are going to provide. I challenge anybody that has the slightest bit of interest in what we are saying today is to research Randall and I. Like, look at what we've done. That is what we are prescribing to our customers. That is what we are doing. That's what we have learned through our own experiences that we are now sharing with others. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like, what we're doing is not for everybody. If you want to do something a little bit different, and you want to have your career, your professional life mean more. And what I mean by mean more, that you define what means more.
Yes, sir.
If you want to have more influence, you have more impact, you want to have more leadership responsibilities, you want to make more money, you want to be able to provide for your, whatever it is. If you want to have your professional life mean more to you, and you want to go the direction of that 1%, then I would say take a look at your personal brand, take a look at your online reputation, and then look at the people who are where you want to be in 10 years and see what they have online for a personal brand and all those different things. And I guarantee you there's going to be a big disparity from the people who are already there to you. And the difference is your personal brand. It's your online reputation, and but you'll never close that gap. So you'll be the replacement. You'll be the person that relieves them when they go on to do something else. You'll never be able to be in a position to do that unless you close that gap.
All right, let's end it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna post your calendar invite in the meeting for this, or in the comment section for this. Anybody that's watching now and is interested, please set a meeting. Please start the conversation. It is worth it. This stuff doesn't happen on its own. If you want to go off on your own, we wish you the best, right? If you want to be successful, if you want to pull it off, if you want to increase your probability of getting to that spot that you want to go, we're your best bet. There you go.
Yeah, I would say it's like the best investment to ever make is the investment in yourself. You'll get the highest return on investment.
Oh, that's a good one. Awesome. I appreciate